Hello, or as we would say if we lived in the world of the first century, where the New Testament was written in the Greek language, Kalimera. My name is Ron Allen. I'm coming to you as a part of the ministry of West Street Christian Church. I've been a member of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, all my life, immersed at the age of 10, having received the loaf and the cup nearly every Sunday since, and am now married to the minister of the congregation, Linda McKernan Allen, for about 45 years. It only seems like 25. On Sunday, March 29th, our associate, Rachel, said that I would be bringing something Bible-esque, and this is the first installment of a series that I am calling The Gospel of Mark, Emergency Literature. These little sessions will be about 5 to 10 minutes long. They will appear 2, 3, maybe 4 times a week. And they will be very frustrating for me because I love to dig into the details of a text. But in 5 to 10 minutes, what I hope to do is pull out 1 or 2 things of a supportive, encouraging, one might even say inspirational nature. I chose the Gospel of Mark because it was written in a time very similar to our own. Now, we pick up the Gospel of Mark and also Mark, Luke, and John and read them often as if they are just straightforward biographies of Jesus. And doubtless there is a lot of biographical information in them, but all of these Gospels were written long after the time of Jesus, and the Gospel writers tell the story of Jesus in such a way as to speak to the circumstances of that time. These things don't stand out to us because we don't have in mind so much the network of feelings, associations, and thoughts that were a part of the world of the first century. The most defining event for the world of Mark took place in the year 70. In the year 66, the Jews had instituted a rebellion against the Roman Empire, and the Roman emperor sent an army which came down the Jordan River Valley, beginning in the year 66, taking 4 years to reach Jerusalem, to besiege Jerusalem, to conquer the city, its soldiers building a mammoth ramp, as they did in those days, marching up over the ramp, coming into the city, sacking businesses, homes, killing, finally coming to the temple, destroying it, leaving only the western wall that we sometimes call the Wailing Wall that you can see on television when you often see Jewish people standing in prayer, kneeling, nodding their heads toward the wall. When I visited Jerusalem some years ago, I went down underneath what is the present city to the level of the city where it was at the time of Jesus. And there in the dark enclosure, several stories below ground, there were ruins and there were charred pieces of wood that date from the year 70, when the Romans destroyed the temple, brought all of its woodwork out into a common place, set the temple on fire, and erected a flag of Caesar in the holy place. This event left Judaism completely shattered. No temple, no priests, many in the upper class now impoverished, many of the social structures no longer certain, homelessness, violence, anxiety. It was an emergency, the likes of which the Jewish community had not seen since the Babylonians did something similar 5 centuries before. In this context, the followers of Jesus are asking themselves, What will our future be like? How do we know we can count on God? Amidst all of this uncertainty, indeed, amidst all of this chaos, what are we as followers of Jesus, as believers in the God of Israel, what are we to do? Mark writes the Gospel of Mark, telling the story of Jesus in such a way as to give this community a sense of the living presence of Jesus, a confidence to face into what is happening, and guidance for how to live from day to day. And so in this first session, I want to think very briefly with you about the very first verse of the Gospel of Mark, because it moves in this very direction. Mark begins the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. I want to concentrate on that word, the beginning. It is a beginning in two senses. First, this verse is the starting point of the Gospel of Mark. But secondly, in those days, often the first words of a book functioned as the title of the book. They did not have nifty title pages with author and publisher like we do, so these opening lines often functioned as the title. And the word beginning here means that the story that is told in this book, the story of Jesus, the story as a whole is the beginning of what will become the good news. For Mark, the good news climaxes only at the end of history when Jesus returns in order to put in place all values, relationships, and circumstances that God wants. More of that another time. Today, concentrating on the fact that the beginning of this story means that the congregation was living in the midst of its continuation, and the gospel is intending to give them the confidence that they can survive the chaos and without denying, downplaying, or otherwise disregarding the suffering of the moment, they can live with hope toward a time when things unfold according to God's purposes. There is another echo here, and that is the word beginning at the outset of the Gospel of Mark in Greek is the same as the word beginning at the outset of the book of Genesis. In the beginning, God created, and that world sustained, God sustained that world through all manner of ups and downs. Mark thereby evokes the reliability of creation. Winter, spring, summer, fall. Spring to plant, summer to grow, fall to harvest. Mark evokes the reliability of creation as a way of saying to his listeners, just as the world, just as God has sustained the world all these years, so God can sustain you in this crisis time. I think when it comes to our situation today, this is still a timely word, that we are in the middle, living through, but we are in a world which God has fundamentally sustained in the language of the in the language of the Bible since the beginning of creation and continues to sustain today. Mark, by telling the story of Jesus, tells the congregation the kind of story he would like for them to tell to themselves and the kind of story he would like for them to bring to life as the kind of story they would look back upon as we look back upon the narrative of Jesus. That is, they themselves could live through their period of chaos with such faithfulness that they could be a part of the resurrection and the fuller coming of the realm of God. That's my question for me right now. How do I want to live these next 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks? How do I want to live in such a way that when this time is ended, I can have about it the kind of faithful memory that Mark portrays of Jesus and those who followed him?